Interesting, Laura. And today we're going to talk about some interesting stuff. So this is Laura with stuff I find interesting. And that's pretty much it. I talk about stuff I find interesting. So here we go. This is hummus. We love hummus. And we are going to look at some photos from hummus that are very cool. So initially I thought that this was one of the stands. But it turns out this is Corfu, which is an island, a Greek island. So here's some really beautiful pictures of old Corfu for you to enjoy. This is the prettiest 404 error message I've ever gotten in my entire life. Look how beautiful that is. It's so elegant. I want it as a screensaver, I think. Can I save like the whole thing? No, I can't do that. Okay. We'll try later. This is the Tazara bell, which we were talking about like 3 or 4 episodes ago. I forget which. And remember, it was built in the ground. It was supposed to be the biggest bell ever created. It ended up cracking in situ. That piece right there that is cracked weighs about 11 tons. So as you can imagine, it's very large and heavy. There are scientists that have recreated what it sounds like, but it will never be rung in its current condition, and that part just can't be like glued back on because it doesn't work that way. This is a crazy thing. This is where is this damn thing? It's crazy looking though, right? Let's see where this thing is. I don't know where this thing is. This is in Isle of Man. So this is a water wheel in Isle of Man. You can see we have some dudes up there. It's kind of hanging out. You see these beautiful stairs, this wonderful brickwork. They recently repainted it. It kind of got sort of like drab looking over time, and it's been recently repainted. The oldest cities in the United States mapped: Weymouth, Massachusetts; Plymouth, Massachusetts; Albany, New York; Jersey City, New Jersey; Hampton, Virginia; St. Augustine, Florida; Kegokton, Virginia; Newport News; Jamestown, Santa Fe; Kegokton? Kekofton. How is that the oldest city in the United States? I never even freaking heard of it. Probably because I'm a damn Yankee, right? St. Augustine, Florida. We're definitely going to have to come back to that. Lots of interesting history there. This is one of my favorite artists currently, and this is digital art. And I like this stuff because it's very tactile. You kind of feel like you want to reach out and like touch it, you know? Like, it's quite lovely. I would imagine he's inspired by Christophe. Is it Christophe? The one who wrapped the L'Arc de Triomphe in fabric, and he did like a coastline. What else did he do? I think he did a bridge. He recently passed away, but his partner is currently carrying on his legacy. This is what we are coming to. This was written in the 1800s, and this is the idea of what architecturally the future is going to look like. So we'll have everything up in the air, train tracks driving around one big huge building. It's really more sort of an amusing thing, but it's cool to look at. I like looking at things like this. And this is a neat little blog. It's about sustainability, which we're going to come back to. Just a beautiful roll picture, although why is there a fence right there and nowhere else? Oh, maybe to tie a horse up, right? Maybe. Okay. This is just a beautiful picture that I love. It's the light, you guys. It's the light. This is a tomb of a Persian king. There are 3 of these. There they are. Tombs of the Persian kings. Very unusual. Well, unusual to my eye, not unusual for the area. This is Tepe Hisar, which is excavations are ongoing. This is a lesser known tepe. You've heard of Göbekli Tepe, and what's the other tepe? There's another tepe. Well, this is a third tepe, and you can see all this part here, that was all underground, and it's being excavated. And to excavate it, they can't just take a shovel and like dig it up. It has to be done carefully in order not to disturb the ruins. Now, people knew that there was stuff there, obviously. I mean, look at the size of this thing. But they didn't realize the extent of it. So there's structures under there. This goes all the way down. Some more pictures, beautiful pictures. Just magnificent, right? Just a city just hanging out. Like, hey, I'm a city. I'm hanging out under the sand. I think I've gotten away from the city now. I think, oh no, it's still Tepe Hisar. I didn't realize. Okay, now we're back to the beginning. Now, I was looking at maps of Tartary, and we're not going to talk about Tartary today. I'm like Tartaried out. I've like watched videos till my eyes crossed. I don't understand it. I don't know. I don't know. But when I was looking at the maps, I found this, and it's the bride chase, marriage custom of the Tartars. So I looked it up, and basically the bride gets kidnapped by the husband. He says, ooh, I like that woman. He kidnaps her. He takes her home. Now, I'm thinking that this is a ritual, right? Like, this is just like pretend. Like, the bride is like, oh, no, don't take me. But if you look, you'll see this guy is beating this horse, and this woman is clearly in some sort of distress. This is not a happy affair. And what tipped me off to that was this picture. So this is 500 girls that were literally kidnapped and sent to Iran. Was it Iran? Isfahan? Yeah, Persian. They were just sent there. Just taken away. So bride kidnapping haunts Ural Kyrgyzstan, causing young women to flee their homeland. There are many types of forced marriage in this world, but perhaps the most dramatic is marriage by abduction or bride kidnapping. It happens in the sub-Saharan Africa, the Caucasus, and Central Asia. In rural Kyrgyzstan, where over 60% of the country's population lives, surveys suggest 1 in 3 marriages begins with a kidnapping. Their bride kidnapping is known as alakachu, which translates to take and run away. It became illegal in 1994, but the practice continues today. Many young women have left in an effort to not be kidnapped. This woman is talking about how her son told her that he kidnapped some woman, and she was just devastated by this. And then there's another story about a woman whose daughter disappeared. She never saw her again. Bride snatching is fairly widespread, it would seem, and it's gotten worse through radicalization of everything.
Hi,
now,
Jeff here.
I came across this video, the Food Forest, and this is Geoff Lawton, and he does this video where he talks about how he's walking through the desert and he comes across this lush sort of area. And he's like, hey, like what's that about? Like, this lush, beautiful area. And he discovers that it's a 2,000-year-old food forest. So you say, wow, what's a food forest? So a food forest is when food is planted in the forest in various layers in a certain way, in a certain sequence, so that it becomes self-sustaining, and each layer helps the next layer. The bottom layers provide nutrients to the soil. The top layers provide shade where necessary. So you have your canopy, tall tree layer, understory layer, vine climber layer, shrub layer, herbaceous layer, which would include perhaps medicinal herbs, ground cover layer, root layer, fungal layer, and aquatic wetland layer. So this sounds all very kind of like, whoa. Could these ancient food forests help feed the world? It seems like a big kind of thing here. It talks more about Geoff Lawton's adventure finding this 2,000-year-old forest. But it's really not like super ambitious. Like, this is a food forest right here, and this is in someone's backyard. Like, this is totally doable. This is a fruit tree. Obviously, you would adjust your food to where you're located in the world. But this is a very, very doable thing. And what you do, the first thing you do, you get rid of the grass. You get rid of the lawn, which is a European invention. The Lost Gardens of Europe. So this talks about some of the lost gardens. This is Italy. People of the Hazel. This is in... I don't know. North America, apparently. So North America, forest orchards, forest gardens, I should say, forest gardens. I kind of wonder if there's any around here. There probably is. It kind of makes you think that you should probably keep your eyes open a little more, right? And be like, oh, that's a food forest that I'm walking in. But the thing that tipped him off is it was hot, 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 and then all of a sudden it suddenly started to get cooler, and it's like its own biosphere, this 2,000-year-old forest. It's pretty cool. Now we're going to talk about conspiracy time. Ooh, check this out. Wait. Okay, it worked better in my imagination. Lago de Conibas. Lago de Conibas shows up in old books. Chinese mapped America before 1430. So before Christopher Columbus, there was mapping going on. Here we have a map from 1600, and if we look, Lago de Conibas, and if we go back to regular size, we can see that this is the United States. We have California, Florida. Looks like we have Hudson Bay. But what is this Lago de Conibas? Let's look at another map. This is 1772. Lago de Conibas. Gran Quivera. We're just starting to talk about cities of gold. There is a link, I promise. Remember this map? This wonderful map? This, hang on, let me see if I can figure out where I am. Where is it? So Lago de Conibas is right here on this particular map, which has Hyperborea, which is the mythical place that has the hole in the middle that goes to Hollow Earth where everybody lives in harmony, or something like that. Here's another map. Let's look at this map here. This is Lago de Conibas. Did they get Lake Michigan wrong? Are those Great Lakes? Is that supposed to be... What is that? There's a lake there. This is the original map for you to look at. And here is another one that shows... all right. This is all blurry. I swear it wasn't blurry when I looked at it before. Lago de Conibas is on that. It is. Here's another one. Now one may be of the opinion that these have either been errors or are wild fantasies, but the entries are quite detailed. A lake with the designation Lago de Conibas is designated, and it cannot be located today on our current world map directly. However, one should consider this fact with the dimensions of this continental section. From the surveying point of view, there was hardly any equipment available to establish the localization without any doubt. So what's amazing is that even in the remote areas of Alaska and Canada, you can find places and place names. Why are there places and place names where there were supposedly no people? Interesting, right? Now let's talk about New Mexico. So here we have New Mexico, and we can see New Mexico is just, it's a very rugged geologically land. It's very rugged. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on there. There's like folds and mountains and canyons and valleys and, all kinds of stuff. And as we look, we can see, we've got some mountains over here. We got some cliffs. Ooh, what's that? I don't know what that is. 7 cities of gold. 7 cities of gold were rumored to have existed. And the 7 cities of Cibola, or it's also spelled Ceoula. So you can see it's spelled either way. And it talks about this guy, Estevancico and De Vaca, his slave, and this dude went out and they were like, there's gold out there. So the Zuni Chabola complex is where it's decided that maybe that's where the gold was. So when people got there finally in like the late 1500s, they were like, well, there's no gold here. There's nothing here. There's just these stone pueblos with people living practically in the Stone Age. But what I argue is that this site goes further back, and maybe the City of Gold goes further back, and the myth held on until it could be officially checked out, but maybe there was something there. So this just talks a little bit about the Pueblo. Now, the Magalan culture was a culture that lived before the Pueblo people, and what's crazy is this is all worn away, but they lived in here, in this spot right here. You could see there's little people there. Like, that's wild, right? This is probably the path that went up, and it probably went around. What a great spot to live, right? And before them, there were the Cochise. So now we're going back to BC. So there were these well-entrenched, well-established, sophisticated people that are no longer there. Now, if we go to Native American accounts of the Great Deluge, they have accounts of flooding, just like we have accounts of flooding. And they're almost identical to every other flood myth in the world. And it's believed that these myths have a historical basis. And it says we must not belittle myth and folklore, as they offer us an entirely different perspective of our world, our place in that world, and the unseen powers that have so much influence over us in our existence on this earth. So it talks about when the ice melted, when did the flood happen? There's some quotes from the Indians at the beginning. All things were in the mind of Wakanda. All creatures, including man, were spirits. They moved about in the space between the earth and the stars. They were seeking a place where they could come into bodily existence. They ascended to the sun, but the sun was not fitted for their abode. They moved on to the moon and found that it was also not good for their home. Then they descended to the earth, and they saw it was covered with water. They floated through the air to the north, the east, the south, and then the west, and found no dry land. They were sorely grieved. Suddenly, from the midst of the waters arose a great rock. It burst into flames, and the waters floated into the air in clouds. Dry land appeared. The grasses and the trees grew. The hosts of spirits descended and became flesh and blood. They fed on the seeds and the grasses and the fruits of the trees, and the land vibrated with their expressions of joy and gratitude to Wakanda, the maker of all things. Culture wiped out. Another culture starts out of nothing. More flood legends. Do you know who the original inhabitants of the United States were? They are known as the First Nations peoples, and they include the Cherokee, Navajo, Lakota, Delaware, Spokane, Apache, and so many other tribes. All of these tribes had a myth that described a great flood. Well, not all of them, 120 specifically. Make no mistake, these traditions do not speak of a local flood or some generic flood story. They match the Noahic flood account on several specific details. There can be no doubt that they are referring to the flood of Noah described in Genesis. And this guy wrote a book about it, arguing about how there was this flood that came through. Now, the lost city of gold. Okay, now I'm looping back to my whole point of this. I think Lake Conibas burst due to some sort of seismic event. Maybe the poles shifted. I don't know. Something happened. That lake burst. All that water went rushing down and took everything out. Now, if a flood comes along and takes out your whole land and you have no way of knowing really what's going on around the world like we do today, you're going to think it's everywhere. You're going to be like, well, the whole world is just flooded because your whole world is flooded, but maybe it's just that particular area. So this goes into a little bit more of it, and I think that there was a great flood that took out the cities of gold, and that they did exist at one time, and that they were taken out, and by the time the Spanish and everybody else went to go look for it, it was gone. It was washed away. Who knows where it went? Now we're going to wrap up with El Dorado, a poem by Edgar Allan Poe, one of my favorite poems. Gaily bedight, a gallant knight, in sunshine and in shadow, had journeyed long, singing a song in search of El Dorado. But he grew old, this knight so bold, and o'er his heart a shadow fell as he found no spot of ground that looked like El Dorado. And as his strength failed him at length, he met a pilgrim's shadow. Shadow, said he, where can it be, this land of El Dorado? Over the mountains of the moon, down the valley of the shadow. Ride, boldly ride, the shade replied, if you seek for El Dorado. So the poem is about a place that doesn't exist. Not anymore, anyway. So that brings us to an end. We are going to look at some fun stuff, and we are going to close. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time.